Hello and welcome back to This Day in History. It is July 11th, 2024. Not that that day really matters. It's all about the day, not the actual physical date. It is a nice, bright, sunny, beautiful day. It's a warm one again. Blue skies. The guy mowing his lawn on his riding lawnmower. It's not as hot as it was, because it was a scorcher, but it's kind of gone down some. So I'm in a bit of a time crunch. It's noon. I have to be at work at 2:30 and still on my way to go do my workout. So let's just get into this, shall we? So birthdays for July 11th. We're going back to 1274. It's Robert the Bruce's birthday, or Robert the First, however you want to designate him. He was the guy who fought for Scottish independence from the English crown, who was led by Edward the First, or Edward Longshanks. If you've ever seen the movie Braveheart, then you know that's who we're talking about here. Is it? It's not William Wallace. William Wallace fought for Scottish independence, but it was Robert the Bruce who was the king, who became King of Scotland as a result of that conflict. So Robert the Bruce was born on this day, July 11th, 1274. Yes. 1767, we see the birth of one of our U.S. presidents, John Quincy Adams. He would be the son of John Adams, who was our second president. I believe John Quincy Adams was our sixth president, I believe. But he was born on this day. 1903, we have a Rudolf Abel, and the only thing I really could find about him is that he was a Russian spy. 1920, we have Yul Brynner. Yul Brynner was, it says Russian born, but I think he was actually born in the country of Georgia, which by that point was absorbed by the Soviet Union. But Yul Brynner was Russian born American actor. He was in a lot of really good movies. He was very iconic when I was born. So, I have grown to love some of the classics, some movies that were before my time. One of the movies being The Ten Commandments. Yul Brynner played the Pharaoh of Egypt. He also played the King of Siam in The King and I, if I recall. He was in the original Westworld, which that movie creeped me out as a small boy. He's just he was a great actor. I really liked him as an actor. 1934, we see the birth of Giorgio Armani, and if you've ever heard of the Armani suit, that's what they're talking about. Giorgio Armani was an Italian fashion designer. 1967, we have American author Jhumpa Lahiri was born on this day, and that concludes these birthdays. We're going back in history for this day in history, and we're going back to 1302. This is pretty interesting. So in 1302, it was the Battle of the Golden Spurs, and what ended up happening was you had a very untrained Flemish infantry army that went up against professional soldiers of the French army. And between them and the Flemish cavalry, they defeated this professional army to hinder them from taking control of modern-day Belgium. So that was the Battle of the Golden Spurs. We fast forward to 1798, the U.S. Marine Corps is reestablished. Now, it was originally established in 1775, but for whatever reason, maybe it only served its purpose for the Revolutionary War. Then it disbanded the Marine Corps. Well, in 1798, they had officially reestablished the Marine Corps, and it's been around ever since. They are the devil dogs. They are the jarheads. They are, some of the greatest fighting men that this nation has ever seen. So they are, and they're still around, obviously. Me being Army myself, I tend to poke fun at them by saying that they're the Navy's bitches, but that's not nice. They are still they are considered Department of Navy, which is really weird because, Army is its own entity. The Air Force became its own entity in 1947, I believe. The Navy has always been its own entity. But the even the Coast Guard is its own entity. But the United States Marine Corps is still considered Department of Navy. Never quite understood that. Yet, their top general serves on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So, I mean, even though they're both considered Department of Navy, the Joint Chiefs of Staff consists of, the General of the Army, the General of the Marines, the Admiral of the Navy, the General of the Air Force, and I'm not sure if that also includes the Coast Guard as well. I would imagine it would, but I'm not sure. At any rate, moving right along. So in 1863, New York City, we see a bunch of riots break out, and protesters, they're New York City workers, they're protesting the conscription policy, right? The draft. So New York workers riot in the streets. They actually attack the draft headquarters, and it's in response to the government, President Lincoln, really issuing draft orders to call up, conscripted, able-bodied men to fight in the Civil War. I believe it's the very first time that we ever had a draft in the United States where, people between a certain age were required to join the service. They were required to fight in a war. Obviously, there was a draft during, I'm not sure if World War I they had drafted, possibly, but World War II saw a draft, Korea saw a draft, Vietnam saw a draft. My father was on the receiving end of that, he had the potential of being on the receiving end of that. Both he and my uncle. I did have one uncle that was drafted but was released due to being a conscientious objector. But after Vietnam, they more or less did away with the draft. Now they have talked about instituting a draft for the current thing going on in Ukraine. That would be a mistake. I think what's going to end up happening is, if that ever happens, you're going to have another Vietnam on your hands, where you have the nation's people protesting and not supporting the war effort whatsoever. And then you have guys running to Canada to escape being drafted, because that happened too. So, there's another couple birthdays that I forgot. 1916, he has a unique name. His name is Gough Whitman. Gough Whitman was an Australian politician. He served as their prime minister from 1972 to 1975 until he was released from office. His birthday was today in 1916. Leon Spinks, he was an American boxer. He was born on this day in 1953, so I highlighted those in my notes, but I just missed them. So where were we? We were 1863 with that draft. 1914. So George Herman Ruth, you would probably know him better as the Babe. Babe Ruth, it's on this day in 1914 that Babe Ruth would play his very first Major League Baseball game for the Boston Red Sox. Boo. I'm a Yankees fan. No self-respecting Yankees fan likes the Red Sox. But to be fair, I'm also a San Francisco Giants fan too. So why, you say? Well, because I had a cousin who played for the Giants. So, but he also played for the Mariners, and I'm still not a Mariners fan. Only when he played there. He also played for the Rangers, the Reds, and the Phillies. But I really don't hold any allegiance to any of those teams either, so go figure. It is what it is. Anyway, past that. So 1936, there's this bridge, there's this Triborough Bridge that is, it opened on this day in New York, and it was, what is it? It was designed by David Bernard Steinman, right? So it opens on this day. It's now known as the Robert F. Kennedy Bridge. It was renamed after him at a later date, but it's on this day in 1936 that this bridge was opened for the Triborough use. Boroughs, it's, those are main areas of the city. I think New York City has like 5 different boroughs, and it's just the pockets or sections of the city. Districts, as it were. So, what do we have next? 1955, the United States Air Force Academy opens temporary barracks at Lowry Air Base in Denver, Colorado. So the other day I was talking about how, West Point was the military academy for the Army. Annapolis was the military academy for the Navy and Marines. And I had questioned, whether Air Force went to West Point, but apparently they do have their own academy, and it's in Colorado. 1960, we see the first publication of Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, and it was basically a book that focused on American racism and injustice. It was a social commentary on our nation's views towards racial equality, or the lack thereof. Basically, it's a story about a lawyer's family and how and his family, in their interactions in the Deep South. A white man gets murdered. A black man is put on trial for that murder, and it turns out that the actual murder wasn't at all as it seemed to be. So I read it in high school. Excellent book. 1989, we see British actor Laurence Olivier. He would pass away. Laurence Olivier, he did some amazing work. as an actor. I do remember him as a kid. He played Zeus in Clash of the Titans. I remember as a kid that every time we went to the video store to go rent a movie, I was always asking to rent Clash of the Titans. I just liked it. But he played Zeus in that movie. So for context there. 2007. See, I didn't know this. So 2007, here's another death of a famous person. Lady Bird Johnson. Lady Bird Johnson was the first lady. She was President Lyndon Baines Johnson's wife. She was also kind of known as to be a little bit of a nut job. I didn't realize that it was this day in 2007 that she passed away. Because he died in 1969 or something like that. And so she lived, she practically lived a whole generation after him. So amazing, I guess. 2015, a Mexican criminal by the name of Joaquin Guzman. He was the leader of the Sinaloa drug cartel, right? So he's in prison for his nefarious drug trafficking and other criminal activities. He escapes prison through a very elaborate and intricate tunneling system, and it was quite profound. That so what it was a network tunnel system. It was pretty ingenious. They had been working on it for quite some time. When he made his escape, he just literally walks right through this tunnel, makes his escape, and he's a free man for about 6 months or so, and then they recaptured him. But it was it just goes to show the ingenuity of those who are really hell-bent on getting someone out, that it's possible that it happens. So that was that. So today's featured event, it's 1804, right? And so this is still in the age of dueling, right? You offend somebody, someone who thinks that their honor has been soiled, they can demand satisfaction in the form of a duel. And it's just like you see in the movies. Each person has a witness, or has a second. Typically speaking, it's usually been about 5 people. There's the guy who administers the pistols to the combatants, and then you have the combatants themselves, and then they have their alternative, or what they call a second. All serve the purpose of being the witness to the event. At any rate, as history tells us, there was a dinner party, and Alexander Hamilton, and this is between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. Apparently there were some disparaging remarks made by Alexander Hamilton. I'm not sure what they were. I don't know if it has anything to do in context with the accusation against Burr being a traitor. Quite possibly that had something to do with it. Burr had to go through an extensive ordeal to exonerate his name. He was accused of being a traitor, selling secrets to the British or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but it was something unique, and to the point where his it was going to cost him his life, because treason, still to this day, treason is punishable by death by hanging. So these disparaging remarks are made. Aaron Burr's pissed off. Aaron Burr challenges Hamilton to a duel. Alexander Hamilton accepts the duel, and it is on this day in 1804, at a location in Weehawken, New Jersey, that they have their duel. And the end result of that is Alexander Hamilton is fatally shot, killed. He's now dead. This being he was considered one of our founding fathers, but he, rather than apologize for his comments, he chose to go on this duel, and then he gets shot dead for it. So that concludes this day in history. As I said, I'm running a little late, so I'm on my way to the gym right now. I'm going to get hopefully a small workout in before I gotta go scoot off to work, because it was just after noon when I started this video, and it's almost 12:30 now. Well, 12, probably 12:25, getting there somewhere, I don't know. Anyway, so that's this day in history. Thanks for tuning in. We will do this again tomorrow for July 12th, where hopefully I'll be a little more prepared and not having to mad scramble all the time. In fact, I got things I got to do tomorrow, so yeah, I can't afford to dilly-dally. So with that said, that is this day in history. Be well, take care of yourselves, and be safe out there, and we will talk to you again tomorrow for July 12th. Have a good day.